So let's zoom in. This right here is the Strait of Hormuz, a thin blue corridor between Iran on one side and Oman on the other, just 33 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. But this tiny stretch of water carries nearly 1/5 of the world's oil. And for India, this is an economic lifeline. So what exactly is the Strait of Hormuz? Why does it matter so much? And why should India be worried? Let's break it down. I'm Asmita and this is the Gist. No jargon, no drama, where we make sense of complex geopolitics, so you don't have to. The Strait of Hormuz is the only sea exit from the Persian Gulf. Oil from Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, and the UAE must pass through this narrow channel to reach the world. Every day, hundreds of giant oil tankers sail through here. If this route is disrupted, oil cannot leave easily. And when supply tightens, prices rise everywhere. The Strait of Hormuz has been strategically important for centuries. It has been a busy sea route linking the Middle East with South Asia and East Africa. Traders moved goods through these waters, connecting the Persian Gulf to the wider Indian Ocean. But its importance grew massively in the 20th century. That's when oil was discovered across the Gulf. As countries like Saudi Arabia and others began exporting huge amounts of crude, this narrow waterway became the main exit route for that oil. Then came its most dangerous chapter. During the 1980s Iran-Iraq war, both sides began attacking oil tankers in what became known as the tanker war. Commercial ships were caught in that conflict. The situation became so serious that the United States Navy started escorting oil tankers to keep supplies moving. In 1988, after a US warship hit an Iranian mine, the United States launched Operation Praying Mantis, a major naval confrontation. The strait survived that conflict, and despite repeated threats over the decades, it has never been permanently shut, because too much of the world depends on it. And now, after Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei was killed in a joint operation by Israel and US, the tensions in the region have massively exploded. And once again, the Strait of Hormuz is in the middle of this flashpoint. So what exactly is happening here? Senior commanders from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps say the strait is under their watch, and that any ship trying to cross could be attacked. That's a clear warning to commercial vessels. As a result, hundreds of oil tankers are now waiting outside the strait. Shipping companies are being cautious. Insurance costs have surged. Some ships are choosing to not enter at all. The waterway is not officially closed, but in oil markets, perception is everything. And even the threat of disruption is enough to push prices higher and quick. Now, an important question. Who owns this water? Does Iran control it? Well, not fully. Iran controls the northern coast. Oman controls the southern coast. Under international law, ships from all countries have the right to pass through international straits like this. So Iran cannot legally claim it or permanently seal it off without major consequences. But here's the key difference. Legal control is not the same as practical influence. Because the strait is narrow and runs along Iran's coast, Iran has leverage. So how does Iran close the waterway? It doesn't need to build a wall across the sea. It only needs to make the route unsafe. It could lay naval mines, use coastal missiles or drones, deploy fast attack boats, issue radio warnings to ships. Even one serious incident can make shipping companies pull back. And when ships hesitate, oil supply slows. When supply slows, prices rise. But can Iran shut it completely and for long? That's far harder. Major global navies patrol these waters. Gulf countries depend on this route, and Iran itself exports oil through the same strait. A long shutdown would hurt Iran too, and likely trigger a strong international response. So a permanent closure is unlikely, but temporary disruption? Well, that's possible, and markets react instantly to that risk. Now let's understand this issue from closer home. India imports nearly 90% of the oil it uses, and roughly half of that oil passes through Hormuz. That means every second liter of imported crude depends on this narrow channel. India also imports a significant share of its cooking gas, LPG, through this route. So if ships slow down or stop, supplies tighten. And when supplies tighten, prices rise. So what happens to fuel prices? India buys oil at international prices. If global crude rises by even $5 or $10 per barrel, the country's import bill increases. Oil companies pay more, pressure builds on petrol and diesel prices. The government then has two options: cut fuel taxes and absorb the shock, which hurts the revenue, or pass it on to consumers, which raises prices. Neither option is painless. So how does all of this affect common Indians? Let's make this simple. When fuel becomes expensive, transport becomes expensive. When transport becomes expensive, vegetable costs more, milk costs more, flight costs more, bus fares may rise, delivery charges increase. Cooking gas is another concern. India does not have very large long-term LPG storage. If shipments slow significantly for weeks, supply pressure builds. Does India have a safety net? Yes, but limited. India has strategic petroleum reserves, emergency crude stocks. They can help in the short term. India can also source oil from countries like the United States or Russia. But alternate supplies take time and often cost more. So India is not helpless, but it is exposed and vulnerable. So how long can this last? Historically, the Strait of Hormuz has never been closed for a long period because shutting it harms everyone: exporters, importers, and Iran itself. Global powers have also strong incentives to keep it open. But even short disruptions, days or weeks, can cause sharp price swings. This crisis highlights something important. India's growth depends on steady energy supply. As the economy expands, energy demand rises. Until India produces much more of its own oil and gas, it remains vulnerable to events far away. That's why energy security matters, not just for climate goals, but for economic stability. So let's zoom out once again. This is not just about ships and missiles. It's about your fuel bill, your grocery bill, and the strength of India's economy. That's why the Strait of Hormuz matters.